Do you know what I really appreciate in life? When people actually try. They don't have to do everything perfectly, they can make mistakes, they can even do something that one would consider to be not very good. But as long as they try, I'll always have a bit of respect for them. And that's the primary reason why I like Only Murders in the Building so much. It's a show where it feels like the creators feel no entitlement to your viewership. It feels like they know that they have to work to keep people watching, and I love that I get this feeling from this show. This show will present revelations and ideas to you in an abstract way. It will have an entire episode without dialogue. It may even break the fourth wall. It will do everything it can to keep you engaged and entertained, and I really appreciate that from this show. It sadly doesn't always work, but when it does, it leads to some really great moments and episodes in the series. This show is a murder mystery show with currently 2 seasons and a 3rd on the way. So is the mystery compelling? Yes, I believe it is. Not only is it because of how the show presents information to us in a slow drip-feeding way, but also because of the characters present in the show. The extra characters and supporting players are all memorable, with some having rather wacky personalities and unique quirks, but a mystery is only ever as compelling as the detective trying to solve it. Sherlock Holmes, Hercule Poirot, Miss Marple, Batman. All good mysteries have great detectives trying to solve them, so who do we have trying to solve the murders in the building? Well, we have 3 very different individuals who all fortunately have personalities that are distinct but complementary to one another. Firstly, there's Martin Short as Oliver Putnam. Oliver is the most eccentric and flamboyant of our 3 leads, and due to the acting prowess of Martin Short, is a scene stealer. Oliver easily could have been an annoying character, especially as he comes across as the most detached from what is happening. He always, at least to me, seems to be the one who cares the least about the fact that someone has actually been murdered. Fortunately, there are other layers to Oliver, and you do occasionally see him grasp the severity of the situation that he is in. For example, there's a scene in the 2nd season where Oliver goes to see Teddy's relationship with his son, and mild spoilers, but the relationship between them isn't great. It very clearly affects Oliver, and due to the part that Oliver played in their uneasy relationship, he clearly feels guilt over it. This is a great way to make a character 3-dimensional. Another is seeing how differently that character behaves around different characters. Usually, Oliver makes himself the centre of attention, whether intentional or not. He's a very extroverted person, which now that I think about it, contrasts with the other 2 leads who feel a lot more introverted. However, Oliver becomes a lot different whenever things revolve around his son. He's a lot more vulnerable, and it becomes very clear to the audience that no one matters more to Oliver than his son. Another major aspect of Oliver is humour. Whilst Only Murders in the Building is first and foremost a mystery, it is also a comedy. And the comedy is just like the abstract aspects of the show that I described earlier. It's hit and miss. Where I do find that when it comes to Oliver and Charles, that more often than not, the humour does indeed land. To balance out Oliver's zaniness, we have Charles-Haden Savage. Steve Martin is both co-creator and writer on the show, so you can definitely tell that he cares about the show, and his acting further solidifies the point. If Oliver is this over-the-top ball of energy, then Charles is this more down-to-earth, zen-like man. He's very calm, but it also feels like there is this wall that he puts up between himself and others. Oliver may feel like he detaches himself from the reality of the situation, but he's often more approachable than Charles. All 3 of the leads have issues that they need to overcome, and Charles is that he just isn't honest with his feelings. He's a charming guy, but because he's never actually honest and allows himself to open up to those around him, he ends up alone and with no one to lean on. Another aspect I love about Only Murders in the Building is that 2 of its leads are these older characters. Usually in films, television, games, anime, comics, etc., the leads are these teenagers or these 20-year-olds, or if it's a superhero film, you may find the lead in their 30s and 40s, but rarely you'll find lead characters in their 50s or above, at least in more popular, widely successful products. Watching a show with 2 leads who are above the age of 70 was very refreshing. It was interesting seeing how they responded to modern things such as texting and TikTok. I'm not used to seeing these things from this perspective, and it is one of the things that makes Only Murders in the Building so great and unique. However, Only Murders in the Building isn't just led by Oliver and Charles. The 3rd lead of this show is Mabel, played by Selena Gomez. I'm going to admit right here, right now, that Mabel is my least favourite of the 3 characters. Not because she's bad, because Mabel is a good character, and because Selena Gomez is so good at the role, but instead because she lacks the unique quality that both Oliver and Charles have. Like I said, it's not unusual for a show to have a 30-year-old as its lead. Additionally, the show really hasn't done as much with her character compared to both Oliver and Charles. Charles, like I said, has had to deal with his troubles of opening up to people, which is best shown in his relationships, such as the one with Jan, who was played superbly by Amy Ryan. I feel like I've seen so much of Amy Ryan lately as I've been watching Only Murders in the Building, The Wire, and The Office US at the same time, so I feel like I've seen quite a bit of her. Personally, I consider her performance in Only Murders in the Building to be the best out of the 3 shows. Oliver also has his issues with his son and Teddy, and also that he's the one who's constantly trying to keep the group's podcast alive after a life of failed business adventures. Mabel's difficulties are a little less clear, at least to me. She clearly feels this similar sense of isolation that Charles does. I won't spoil why. It doesn't help that they very quickly put her in a relationship in the 2nd season, and to me, it just felt very rushed, and I didn't feel like there was any chemistry between the characters. It honestly felt like it came out of nowhere, at least to me. I hope that in the third season they really focus on Mabel and develop her character more, as I feel the show focuses a lot more on Oliver and Charles. Selena Gomez has proven herself to be a good actor, and I love watching her character interact with Oliver and Charles. Both characters really bring out the best sides of her character, and I love watching the three leads interact. They all bounce off each other effortlessly. You can make the argument that the reason Mabel feels so underdeveloped in comparison to Oliver and Charles is because they are older. It took decades for both of them to start changing, so it shouldn't be too surprising that it's taken Mabel longer to change. And that's fair enough, I just wish they did more of her. Again, good character, good actress, just slightly weaker than the other two leads in my opinion. Since I mentioned Amy Ryan, I'm also going to quickly talk about Cara Delevingne and Nathan Lane. Cara Delevingne surprised me in the show. She's a much better actress than I initially assumed. She doesn't show up in the show too often, but when she does, she never feels like an afterthought. Nathan Lane brings such complexity to his character Teddy Demas. Teddy is a character who's both very vicious and commanding, yet in other moments, especially regarding his son, he is vulnerable and distressed. He's a complex character given a brilliantly nuanced performance, and is in my opinion the standout of the supporting cast. The most surprisingly brilliant part of Only Murders in the Building is how they really make the murder seem terrifying. Usually in murder mysteries, the murder itself is glossed over, with the focus being put on the detectives as they solve the crime. Whilst Only Murders in the Building also mainly focuses on its crime solvers, he never forgets that the central premise of both seasons is based around the character that actually died. Both seasons really give both murders the impact that is often lacking from other murder mysteries. The second season devotes an entire episode to its victim, building them up into a sympathetic figure, making their death all the more tragic, especially when you are made to understand how preventable it could have been. Hearing the murder victim for season 3 just utter the words "help me" as they collapse to the floor dead was surprisingly effective. The scariest was by far Tim Kono's death in season 1. I won't spoil how he dies or who does it, but just watching the terror in his eyes as he realises what's about to happen to him. Damn, this show can hit hard when it wants to. The acting in this show is phenomenal. The directing and framing of scenes are also great. The score is noticeable, but never overshadows the visuals of the scene. The characters are memorable and the writing fantastic. All in all, Only Murders in the Building is a marvellous show. It's not perfect, and I do think that it has some growing pains in the first half of the first season, and yes, sometimes a joke doesn't land, but if you allow the show to sink its hooks into you, you'll be very happy because this is by far one of the most unique shows that I've seen in quite a while. Plus, the episodes are only about half an hour long, so it's not like you've got to spend too much time watching it.